I'm Kevin Davis. This is the Catholic Family Podcast, and I'm happy today to be joined by what might be my youngest guests yet. But they might be the best too. I guess we'll have to find out as we go. And that is Gianna and Annie. They are the hosts of I already lost the name of it. Teens and Faith Catholic Conversations. I knew I was going to do it. I knew it. I pulled it up and then I lost it. That's unbelievable. Well, we already talked before the show, and I told him, I was like, yeah, I even went to podcasting school or broadcasting school, I should say, and I still make really ridiculously stupid mistakes. So I'm not the one to ask advice for most of these podcasting things. But yeah, they're two 15-year-olds who have their own YouTube channel, which everyone who listens to the show knows I am a big fan of that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of doing and building and making, and I really, really appreciate it that two 15-year-olds had the gumption to start a podcast. And I'm actually pretty curious why on earth they decided to do that. So, Annie, Gianna, thanks for being here. And I guess, boy, who should I ask? Maybe Annie, maybe I'll ask you. Why did you start this podcast?
Well, it's actually kind of a funny story. So I was watching something on the TV one day and I saw this ad for like women empowerment or something, and it made me really mad. So I started texting Gianna and I was like, this is so dumb, the world's so entitled, blah, blah, blah. And then we were going on a rant for like 30 minutes just about how entitled the world is and whatever. And then randomly I was like, we should start a podcast. We're really good at ranting. And Gianna was like, yeah, sure, let's do this. But it was all just a joke. And then like an hour later, I was like, wait, do you actually want to start a podcast? Like, should we do this? And she was like, I mean, sure, I'm kind of scared, but yeah, we can. So we planned it for like 2 weeks and we re-recorded our pilot episode like 10 times. But then we finally posted and we got a lot of positive feedback. So yeah.
That's awesome. So Gianna, how do you guys know each other?
We met on TradChat, so the messenger website that Michael Cajeso coded or made and everything. Yeah, one day Annie and I both got on at the same time, and her mom, Annie's mom, was standing right behind her, and she was like, "Oh, you should go talk to her." And Annie's like, "No, Mom, that's so weird." So, but she ended up messaging me anyway, which was great because I would have never messaged Annie otherwise. Like, I can't do that on my own. I'm extremely melancholic. So, but yeah, after that we started texting and we already had the connection because where Annie lives, that's where my cousins live. So I was like, oh yeah, my cousin Leah was talking about you, and she was like, oh, Leah, I know Leah, and then we kind of just went from there. So
Cool. Wow, that is. I think I'm not going to have on Michael Cajeso to talk about the app. That sounds pretty. I'd heard about that from Dominic a couple months ago now, and I totally forgot it existed. So that's pretty cool. I guess I won't go too much into that because I guess I'll save that for him. Which I guess if he coded it, how old is he then? He's a teenager, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 16. He's only a year older than us. So yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Cajeso's driving me crazy. They're always doing all these things and outperforming. Again, what they always do, what I say or what I think I want to do, they just actually do it. They're awesome. They're like they're the doers. No, that's cool. So I guess so. You started the podcast, and what was your pilot episode, Annie? What did you talk about?
We kind of just talked about what the podcast is going to be about, and then we talked a little bit about like our backgrounds, but we're only 15, so we didn't have that much to talk about. So it was only like 7 minutes long, and the audio was absolutely horrible. But yeah, we got a little better at it, so that's good.
Yeah, I guess that is an interesting issue that you. But see, I'm thinking about it though. That I mean, you are just 15, but you're having a conversation about entitlement. That's actually that's a pretty highbrow topic, right? You're not like, come on, you're not like, oh, I was watching this show and this girl had on this pink hat that I really didn't, entitlement. That's actually a pretty good topic. I'm actually pretty impressed. I figured it wasn't, some sort of stupid fashion thing, but I didn't think it would be something as good as an entitlement. That's pretty cool. So I mean, so that wasn't the first conversation you'd had though. You'd already been talking for a bit. It wasn't just like you talked for a day and I was like, hey, let's do a podcast. So you've been friends for how long then?
Probably like 2
Um,
or 3 months at that point, maybe, right?
Mhm.
A month? I don't
yeah,
know. Yeah,
yeah, I
it
think
was in the
May,
summer. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was
Uh,
it was more than a day though.
yeah.
And so Gianna, I'll ask you what's been the hardest thing about making podcasts so far?
I guess probably finding time to do it, especially with school starting now and everything. Um, and where I'm at right now, I'm very behind in school, so I have to I spend most of my hours doing school, and then sometimes I'll procrastinate, and my mom gets mad at me, and then she'll force me to do more school. So I think the hardest part is just like finding a good time to do it, and then since we interview people for almost every episode, I think. Um, it's also trying to find a time that works for them as well. So
I know those struggles. Yeah, that is pretty tough, and it is one of those things you kind of have to leave it kind of open. Like that's often what I'll do. It's the hardest with priests because like, okay, Father, could you do this day, this day, this day, this day, or this day? And then maybe they'll say yes, and then of course priests get called to much more important issues than podcasts, and so sometimes then it just never happens or it has to be pushed off. And it really is amazing though. Sorry, I don't want to talk about my podcast too much, but it's amazing that I've had on three priests at a time on several occasions, and it just worked. So again, I think that's just kind of must have been meant to be because that is pretty incredible that just kind of happened. It would have been their afternoons too. So I don't know.
oh,
It does work, and that is something too. That I mean, a little tip for you guys to never be afraid to ask. You can just say, "Hey, hey, you want to do? Hey, Father, you want to do a podcast on this day?" Yeah. And so Annie, I'll ask you. So I'm going to ask you guys some other questions. So I'm not just going to talk about the podcast, but I'm curious. What went into that first podcast, I suppose? I mean, how did you learn? Because again, I went to broadcasting school. So I knew, okay, Audacity is the free editing program, which is actually pretty awesome. I don't know if that's what you guys use, but it's actually for a free program. It's amazing. So did you Google it? You're like, how to do a podcast, or what did you do?
So my uncle, he listens to a lot of podcasts. So I told him that I want to start a podcast and he gave me a lot of feedback and he is also very techie.
Nice.
So he actually introduced me to Audacity and the first episode, like I said, it was only 7 minutes, but we spent like 2 hours figuring out how to edit it. So my uncle was a big help to us starting the podcast. So I'm really thankful that he helped me with that.
It is cool though that you can get these programs that are really good but free. Audacity is amazing. I actually tried. So when I was in school, obviously I had different programs and stuff too, and I have these teachers who are like, they're using Adobe Premiere or whatever the sound one is. I don't know, but a lot of money, really expensive programs. And I had this one teacher one time. He's like, honestly, it's not any better than Audacity. He's like, it looks nicer. It has more buttons. You can do, if you're a real high tech, then of course, if you're making a movie or something, yeah, of course, you're not going to use Audacity. But if you're anything else, it's just as good. That's actually one of those really beautiful things. And it's actually a really good point of like, if that wasn't the case, I don't know if I would have had a podcast. If I had to pay for Adobe Premiere or something, I think I would just be like, no, I'm good. I'm not going to spend $100. No, thanks.
Yeah.
No, that is cool. And so how many episodes have you done?
I think we just posted our 14th yesterday. So.
Mm-hmm.
And what's your favorite one so far? Be careful how you answer this.
Oh man. The one with Father McKenna was really fun.
Yeah, of course.
That was good. Yeah.
The one we just filmed with you was actually very fun too.
Better. Yeah, man, I had to force that out of you guys. No, that is cool. Well, it's interesting. I was looking through some of the different videos, and I was pretty impressed. I think you said 14, and I think they're all over 40 minutes long.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
I think so.
That's pretty. I was pretty impressed. I kind of expected, yeah, okay, Father McKenna he'll go an hour or more, but I like when I first started, I think I did a couple long ones, but I think several of them were 10, 20 minutes.
Mm.
And so props, that's pretty good. And that's actually, people don't appreciate that unless, you have to live with a sanguine probably, but being able to just talk for over an hour long is actually a pretty difficult issue. And so I guess I'm also interested what it's like this might sound a little weird, what it's like living in the world as 15-year-old girls. Obviously, I've never experienced this. So I have a 4-year-old girl and I have a 8-week-old girl. So they're going to be, they're growing up into the world. So they'll be 15 at some point, a long time from now, which is kind of good, kind of bad, I suppose. I'll have to go through that. But what are the hardest things, I suppose? Maybe Jen, I'll ask you that. What's the hardest thing about being a 15-year-old Catholic girl in the world today?
Well, I guess for one would be making friends who are girls, partially because girls are very catty in general. And sometimes clicky, cocky, that sort of thing, all the
Sure.
C's. But so I guess it's kind of hard that way. And then plus nowadays too, where like the clothing, where you get like they're like wearing nothing, basically just walking around. Like even if you went somewhere like Walmart or something, there's people
So true.
walking around in there with like nothing on. So
It's always a good thing when winter comes around, right? I thought
yes,
that too. It's like,
right?
oh, whew, it's getting cold. I'm a summer guy. I much prefer summer, but that is one big benefit when it starts getting cold. Like, good grief, and it's so true. And what it blows me away. It just shows you it's parenting. I mean, I see people, walking around with their kids. So you have someone's clearly young teenager or younger, and they're barely wearing pants, for goodness. I mean, it's just, you can't even believe it. And they're young kids, and it's not good for anyone, obviously, but when they're young kids, it's like, I want to go up to their parents and just like grab them by their scruff of their neck. And, because it's like, what are you doing? I mean, I just don't understand it. Sorry, I'm going on a rail here, but I mean, just one of these, it's like, okay, even take morality out, take out faith, let's say we're not Catholics. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I mean, you understand how this works, right? I mean, how people are viewing women. It's so absurd and it's obscene. And it shows you how the world, and again, okay, not again, but in the other podcast that'll go up on your channel, we're talking about not being pessimistic, but man, I tell you, in the world like today, you just see the devil is just so out in the open, right? It's just like immorality just in your face. So like, oh yeah, here's a 13-year-old girl and you see pretty much her whole body. It's like, what? How does a culture let that happen? Like, what is happening? Like an adult or something, it's one thing. It's terrible. It's horrific. It's awful. But for a kid, it's so gross. Oh man. Anyway, sorry.
It's gross. Yeah.
No, it has to be. And so this is kind of a weird question, but is that I've seen people say that it's hard to find modest clothes. Is that a problem?
Yeah,
Yes,
it is.
it definitely
You
is.
really
It's
have
very hard to
to.
find.
Yeah. Like,
Hmm.
I think the best option would be like online. You have to find this online website to get modest clothes, because you can't really find anything. Like, you go into a store and they don't have anything like that
Crazy.
would be modest enough. I mean, there's this one website that my mom and my aunt like to look at called Inherit Co. And they do have some expensive stuff, but it's all pretty modest for the most part. And there's another one called the Skirt Lady, and they make modest clothing, and that's where you get it off of. But you can't just go into a store and find something like that. It's
Yeah.
very rare.
Speaking of going into stores, my mom and I, we were trying to go clothes shopping one summer, and we went to the store, and they had dresses, but the dresses were literally just one thin, tiny piece of fabric. Like, there's
Crazy.
absolutely no modesty in stores anymore.
Yeah, and again, it just shows you how depraved the world is, right? It just doesn't make sense. It's not even just immoral. It's just ridiculous. It's absurd. It's like the whole abortion issue, right? I mean, it's our entire, like, the politics right now. The Democratic Party is running on abortion. Like, that is their main topic. And just think about that for a second. Like, just sit and think that an entire party, a political party, their admitted biggest topic is abortion. It's killing unborn babies. I mean, again, I don't want to be pessimistic, but it's just like, what are we doing here? It's just unbelievable. But totally on a different topic, or back to the clothes topic. This is an interesting thing. I'm not the one to be giving clothes advice, but this is coming from the mouth of my wife. She's found it really interesting that she had the same issue with modest clothes and stuff, but we're actually really fortunate in Bavaria that they have a really traditional custom, like they wear what's the word? Traditional clothing that are like lederhosen. You know what lederhosen are? So leather pants. So if you Google Bavarian boy, you'll see him in lederhosen. That's what they're known for. You'd probably recognize it. You've seen it in shows or something. But anyway, they have also for women. They're called dirndls, or it's called tracht. So it's like it's a very traditional way of dressing. And it's awesome. It's really modest. The original one. So if you go to the Oktoberfest, they have immodest ones, but the really traditional ones are really modest and they're old fashioned. And anyway, what she's experienced is that she doesn't buy a lot of clothes. She just buys a few really nice pieces. Like she's going to spend the money instead of buying 5, stuff things. She buys one nice one, and then she just wears that, and then and then she has a couple pieces that are really nice. And I think that's a really interesting. That's another interesting topic, because I think that if you think about consumerism and whatnot and how it became, it's almost like an addiction, right? It's that I have to. Well, of course I have to buy a lot of things, and then you actually look at your clothes and you look at the tag, and you're like, made in China, 100% polythermalite to tickle. It's like, wait, what is this? What am I actually wearing? And it's nuts.
Yeah, it is funny. I look at a lot of stuff and it says, "Oh, made in China." Like, it's rare if I find something that says, "Oh, made in Vietnam or Thailand or something." It's always made in China, which I'm like, "Oh, that's a little interesting."
Well, and honestly, again, it's kind of icky, right? Because we know why, right? It's from China, because China can produce it really cheap, and so they send it to us really cheap because they have practically slave labor. And it's one of those weird. Again. I know I'm totally weirdly stealing the show, but I mean, it's one of those weird things where you start talking about how weird the world is, right? We let our girls walk around half naked, we kill our babies, and we are buying cheap things from a country that uses slave labor because it's cheap. It's such a weird, like actually sit and think. And I highly recommend to anyone who watches this, and anyone who watches this channel already knows this, but maybe there's some young people. And really think about everything you buy, and do it for 2 weeks or a month. Every single thing you purchase. Don't think about the price, or you can think about the price. Sure. Think about everything. But the point being, think about almost like philosophically, what is this? Why am I buying this? If you have a shirt and it says it's from China, okay. What does that mean? Why is it from China? Why is it not cotton? Why and it's I think you'll actually find yourself like, oh boy, okay, maybe I should buy a more expensive shirt or whatever from America, or from the Amish lady down the street. It's even better. But unfortunately, we don't have many people who make things, who make clothes anymore, and so because it's been shipped out to China. But I do actually hope that Trump changes that a little bit, that's a very different topic, because if he brings in tariffs, it's going to make it more expensive to get things from China. But anyway, Annie, I'll ask you, do you have the same issues with, I don't know, being a 15-year-old girl, or just a 15-year-old in the world today?
Yeah, I think Gianna basically got it spot on. Another thing I would add is there is so few traditional Catholic teenage girls anymore that, like she said, it's really hard to make friends. So that's why we're super blessed to have TradChat, because at my mission, there is no girls my age. The closest girl my age, I think she just turned 12. So that's only a 3 years age difference, but maturity from a 12 to a 15-year-old, it's pretty different.
True.
So I'm really thankful that Michael coded TradChat, because I've met a lot of good teenage girls on there. So I think without TradChat, I honestly wouldn't have that many friends.
Wow, that's neat. So is that, do you find that in the App Store, or is it online? Is it just TradChat? I know it's like a private group.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically, I think how it works is you have to ask Lauren or Dominic for the link or whatever for TradChat, because it's highly monitored. Yeah.
You mean it makes sense?
It does. It makes sense.
It's actually monitoring, doing the best that we can for our children. What are you talking about? No, that's great. No, that is really cool. And again, boy, how cool is it to have something you can trust? I mean, it's nice to have, not even just podcasts or YouTube channels or whatever, but be able to have a chat program that you can trust. That's so I assume. So then it's the Cajessos who would be monitoring it. Then I would assume. Yeah, cool. Wow, that's neat stuff. Well, if you want to contact Dominic, go and buy some of his books and stuff. By the way, it's one of my pet peeves is that we Catholics we're really cheap. We don't want to pay for anything, especially any Catholic material. So guys, go and support Dominic. If we want people to make stuff, then we have to support people who make stuff. And Dominic is someone who makes, and unfortunately has not seen as much success as he should. His cartoons are so good; they're awesome, and my kids love them. And they just don't have enough views. It blows my mind. I don't know. I don't understand it. It's a tragedy that he has not seen the success that he should in the cartoon. So, guys, Glorious Heritage cartoons, go definitely check them out. I'm trying to think of what questions can I ask. I mean, what do you what do you see of the outside world? So from my perspective, I'm 35. I have a family. The issues I see are, I'm looking at politics, elections. You're looking at debt. These types of things. What of that gets into your heads as 15-year-olds? I'm trying to think of myself as a 15-year-old. And I don't think I was really aware of any of the bigger stuff. Is that the same for you guys? Or is it, I guess, Annie, I'll ask you first.
Well, so I don't really pay attention to politics and stuff like that, but my older brother, Elias, he's 16. He loves learning about politics and what's going on in the world. So most of the stuff I know about politics is from him, actually. So, but I've never really found it that interesting. I mean,
sure.
I'm sure Gianna's the same way, but yeah.
You the same, Gianna?
No.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, actually, I'll look at some politics. Some of it kind of scares me, so I stay away from it. But but I will listen to some stuff, or my parents will be talking about it, and then I'll eavesdrop and find out kind of what's going on in the world, because I think it is important to know a little bit of what to look out for. Obviously, still you need to maintain innocence, and everything in a Catholic perspective. But I think it's good to know some of the stuff that's out there. And usually, out of my own curiosity, I'll look up some videos sometimes of different wars going on, or the Israelis versus the Palestinians right now, or sometimes I'll look at some of that and what kind of stuff they're going through, and just just random stuff. Kind of like that, or the whole Trump versus Kamala thing, or I recently saw a video where Kamala was being interviewed for something, and it was amazing. She could not answer a question, and I know why, because if she would have said the truth, it could harm her, but yeah, she just kept dodging it and then attacking Trump for something else. And I'm just you really want someone like that to rule the country? No, I don't.
No, it's that is absolutely true. No, and it is that is interesting that you do pay attention. I think that's good. I think it is. I think that the more, and when I was 15, I didn't have a smartphone. I didn't have a phone. My parents were pretty strict about phones and stuff. We didn't have the internet. I mean, I had, so I'm an old fogey, right? I mean, that's the crazy thing. You guys have never known a world without this type of technology. We had, when I was a kid, we had dial-up internet that took forever. We had chat rooms, but it was really this crazy thing. I'd be in a chat room with my aunts, and it was the coolest thing. I'm chatting with my aunt online. It was just, it was because it was so new technology, and that's not that long ago. But I didn't have smartphones or anything, which was definitely, I'm happier for it. I think I spent a lot of time outside and played a lot of sports, and I think that's in many ways healthier. But I think that the world has changed so that there really is information is everywhere, right? It really is just all invasive, and I guess that's why I asked you that question, because I wonder if that is. Yeah, it's hard to keep that right level, right? Exactly as you said, Jenna. It's hard to, because you want to be informed. I think that's really smart. I think that's mature. And I think that's interesting that how you guys, how you started talking about a podcast. I think that's funny. But I wonder, how much do you also need to have a a childhood, because you're still kids, right? And so I guess, Andy, do you feel that at all? Do you ever feel kind of like I don't know, what's the word, oppressed, that you kind of like, hey, just let me be a kid?
I mean, ever since I was little, I always like wanted to be older and grow up. But now that I'm 15, I'm kind of like, yeah, just let me be a kid for the last few years I have, and I can worry about adult stuff later. So
Yeah, it's tough. And again, is a hard line, because you want to be mature. You don't want to be like a little baby 15-year-old. But it is also like, that's part of the issue I see with technology, right? That I think so much, you can see so much. There's so much, not even just immorality. It's just so much of politics and stuff. It's like, as a 15-year-old, I don't really remember. And I know, like when I was in Omaha, we even went to a rally one time, because I think they wanted us to see, like, hey, it's important to be, you need to understand civics and understand it's your duty to be part of it. But I think I was much more of a sports guy. That was always that was always more of my thing. Probably would be better if it was now too, because it is typically less depressing. And so I guess, what do you guys think? What can we do to make the world better? Maybe that's a silly question, but I mean, what's the, if you could do one thing in the next 10 years, what would it be, Gianna? Even to make your life better, doesn't have to be the world.
Well, I guess for my life, and for the world, I guess, to make it better, I think if everyone were to follow under God's commandments and, follow his laws, I think that would make the world a better place, and like my life in general too, because everyone now will say, oh, like, show your pride, or like, oh, be gay, or whatever like that. But I'm like, that's not making the world a better place, or like being nice to people. You really should just follow under God's laws, and it will be a better place. So.
Absolutely. Annie, what do you think?
I agree with Gianna with what she just said. I also think if there was any way I could convert a lot more people, because I think it would make the world a lot better if we could convert more people, because like for our kids, they would have more friends, and yeah.
That is absolutely true. Okay. So last question, Gianna, what do you want to be after high school? What do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? You're grown up. In a couple years.
I honestly don't know. I've had a really hard time figuring that out. So right now I'm just praying and like, God, you tell me what to do and I'll do it. So
good outlook. Annie?
Well, I
podcaster.
Want to be podcast. And I want to be a stay-at-home mom when I grow up. So
cool. Well, I certainly hope that you both continue podcasting. Maybe you can do it as years down the line. You'll be stay-at-home moms, and the problem is you're gonna have a real problem in about 5 years, that you're gonna have to change the name of your podcast. That is definitely the case. That
we have talked about that a little bit.
That's awesome. This is only gonna last another 5 years, guys. No, yeah, I guess you can't have it all. Well, no, I appreciate you guys coming on. I appreciate being on your show. I don't know which one's gonna be published first. Probably mine, because my stuff is ridiculously published way too soon. It should be edited more, and I just never do it because I either lazy or don't have the time. Those two things go hand in hand very, very closely. But it's been fun. We've had actually a long time talking with each other. You guys were a lot better interviewers than I was. I just don't. What do I ask? I don't know what to ask 15-year-olds. I never interview 15-year-olds. You guys tell me. What am I missing? What should I? What else do you want to? What do you want to tell the world? No pressure.
I don't really know. I think you did a really good job. I mean, yeah, you basically covered everything, because there's not much you can ask 15-year-olds, because we, like you said, like we have not lived as long as you. We've only had 15 years. We've never left the house like on our own.
I don't know what I would have said as a 15-year-old. Yeah, right. Yeah. I like chocolate. Yeah, it would not have been. I would not have been very. No. Here's a funny thing. When I was 15, this is true. So Bishop McGuire, if you're listening to this is absolutely true. I was so shy when I went to Omaha when I was 15. When I went out there, I I did my own thing. I read books all day long. Like I was a big reader. I mean, like read. And yeah, like I don't know, 4 months later, for some reason, after I left home, so I was at boarding school, I just totally changed. So I was phlegmatic. I was like 100% phlegmatic, changed to a 100% sanguine in like 4 months. I came home and my parents were like, what happened? It was pretty wild. So it actually, but I used to be really shy. I was this really, really quiet, nerdy little kid. There's a question for you. Okay, what are your favorite books? And they don't have to be religious books. I have to say my favorite book's Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. That's the book. And obviously there are religious ones that are better and more important, but I just love that one. Jen, I'll ask you for what's your favorite book?
Well, I don't read that much, honestly, but let's see.
You can say movie too. That's all right.
Yeah.
Or if your mom's listening, it's like read more books, Gianna. You gotta read more books. Do your school.
Yeah. I really liked this book called Under Angel Wings. So it's about this girl in the like at the beginning of the 20th century, living in Brazil, I believe, and she could see her guardian angel. And her guardian angel would instruct her and everything like that. And there's a few pictures in the books, like real pictures of her, specifically the girl. So I really liked that one. But,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Annie, how about you?
My favorite book of all time is probably Story of a Soul by the Little Flower, but I also really like Jane Austen's books.
Oh,
like
I was just going to say, if you haven't read Jane Austen, you got to read. I love Jane Austen.
Oh, yeah. Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility.
So good.
Very good books.
Yeah, they're the best. Yeah, I actually liked Persuasion too. And see, I'm not ashamed. Yeah, okay. I'm not ashamed to admit that I like Jane Austen. I know some people think, oh, they're girl books. They're so good. She is such a good writer. I love her style, and her characters are just, they're amazing. They're really. I think Pride and Prejudice is probably in my top 5 books. Like
really,
legit. Okay. And I've read a lot of books. I love Pride. It is such. It's just such a perfect book that she does such a great job of telling the story and making these characters, and the language is so sarcastic, but not. Oh, it's so good. That's a great book. That's a good one. Yeah, no. Another one I really like. It's not really a 15-year-old girl book, but I really like the way he writes is what's his name? Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So it's Sherlock Holmes. And they're really interesting. So it's similar time period as Jane Austen. I think a little later, or quite a bit later. Actually, now that I think about it. Anyway, but it's very high language. It's just a really cool style. It's a really different language than what we speak today. And I don't know. And but it's still modern. If that makes sense. It's right on the edge of modern but old, and it's a really neat mix. And he has a really cool way of telling stories. Sherlock Holmes is obviously it's pretty dark at times. It's Sherlock Holmes, but some of them are really just the language is just really, it's really, I don't know, interesting. Just the way he wrote was definitely fascinating. I'm trying to think what else. I really liked Tolstoy, Dostoevsky. So I like the Russian guys. I don't know. I've read a lot of books, but no, Jane Austen's the way. And I love Tolkien. I love Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yes.
I'm trying to think what are my favorite. I really like, in Lent we read The Day Christ Died. That's by Jim Bishop, and I really like it. It's a kind of like from the view of a reporter, almost like he tells the story of the day Christ died, and it's really thought-provoking and really detailed. Like he tells us what was it like in that time, like the Jewish people, what were they, what did they do, what did they eat, what were their rules. And it's really fascinating because when you learn that, you learn the Jewish laws and the real nitty gritty. You learn even more incredibly how incredibly bad it was what they did to Christ. And not just obviously what they did to Christ, but like they were breaking all their own rules. I think like all of it. It's really amazing. Like I never appreciated that until I read that book, that they have very detailed rules, and they just didn't care because they hated him so much that they were so afraid of him that they just had to break them just to murder an innocent man. And again, it's when you read this book, it makes it much more real, if that makes sense. We obviously grow up with Christ and his story, and we've known it since we were 2 years old. But at least speaking for myself, it becomes kind of this unreality, right? So yeah, it's this, it is a story, this, we hear it all the time. It's a story, but it actually happened. It's a reality that was history that actually happened, and to think about, the apostles and how they were actually fishermen, and how, that there's kind of the frustration with them. It really, really interesting. So that's a good one. I highly recommend The Day Christ Died, Jim Bishop. What's I'll think of one more. What's another one? Oh, the Saint Alphonsus, the preparing for death. Oof, man, that's maybe when you're 15 you don't quite need to get into that, but it really is, it really is actually, I mean, it is, kind of dark as you would expect, but it's also really kind of nice because it really makes you put things in perspective, right? It's like, oh, death, our troubles on this life, they're just little things compared to what will be, and that's pretty nice. So that's another one. Maybe you don't have to read that now, I suppose. Maybe in a couple of years, but maybe now you can read it now too. It'll probably do you some good. Anyway, all right, ladies. Okay, any last comments before I continue to mumble on? It's late. Okay, it's 10 o'clock here. It's 10 o'clock. Way past my bedtime. Yeah. Anyway, so ladies, it's been great. I gotta shout out your channel again. And I'm gonna actually read it right this time. Teens and Faith Catholic Conversations. It's not that hard of a name. I don't know why that's so hard for me to remember. If it's more than 2 words, it's just it goes in and out. But no, everyone go check them out. Please go subscribe. And there will be an interview of me, which is pretty crazy, and I talk way too much. You thought I talked a lot as a host. I talk way more as a guest. It's kind of terrifying. So apologies to the ladies again that I just kind of talked. But please really do go and subscribe. And tell your friends, tell especially your young friends, because I think they're definitely right that it is a really hard world to live in for anyone, but especially hard for young people who don't have other Catholic young people nearby. That's absolutely true. I was really blessed to have good Catholic friends my entire life, and not everyone has that. So yeah, who knows? Maybe someone will be able to watch the videos on their channel and be like, hey, I feel kindred spirits, and maybe they'll be friends. But I think they'll see that there are other good Catholic girls and boys out there who think like they do. They're not weird, and as we talked about in the other podcast, we have the coolest thing on earth. The coolest thing on earth is the Catholic faith. And I think we all agree with that. We all know that. And so if we can help share that and spread that and show other people that, and as Annie said, boy, it's one thing, but if we could convert people, shoot, I mean, I figured all the sins I've committed, I better convert a lot of people, if I'm going to end up in heaven, that's going to kind of hopefully, dig me out of the hole. But I think that's what these ladies are trying to do as well, to normalize Catholicism, which I think we can do. We'll do it together. Annie, Gianna, it's been fun. And maybe we'll have to do it again sometime. Maybe we'll have Father McKenna on it at the same time, and then we won't have to have it won't be a competition for views, which I told them in the other one that I'm going to make sure that my podcast with them gets more views than Father McKenna's, even if I have to refresh, and I want to share it in every Facebook group I know. That thing's that's going to be everywhere. That's going to be all over the world. So anyway, go check out their podcast. And ladies, until next time, God bless.
Thanks for having us on.